All right, what you're looking at is a channel master, the one I couldn't fix because uh, the tuning capacitor was shot, was scratchy. But this is the inside. And channel master has one of the longest ferrite rods in a radio. It's right up there with super radios. But what I want to discuss is the difference between DX, Fringe. Now, Fringe is also long distance radio. So let's talk Fringe. Let's talk in the middle of the day. Now, if you key in a station on Google, and you'll get the radio locator, and it'll show you the daytime map and the nighttime map. And some stations shift their power, but let's stay with daytime. So you're in an area, and you have certain channels, stations you can listen to, and you realize that maybe 25 miles away there's a station back from where you live. You commuted 25 miles to work, and you want to pick up the station that you listen to where you live, and you put on the radio, and it's a regular radio, and it doesn't get it because it's not a local station. It's considered Fringe. Now on the radio locator, you key it in, and it'll show the circle of coverage in green, and that's local. Then there's a circle in yellow, and that's the Fringe. And in order to get the station, if you're in those areas, you have to have a Fringe radio, and that's what this is. It's got the extra RF amp on the front end. And Radio Shack made one. They call it a long distance radio, a TRF. There's various names, but it's still not. You're not DXing, right? You're not DXing at this point. You're coming up with a radio that's more sensitive, and it can pick up stations that are further away during the day. They don't fade in and out. They may become stronger as the sun comes up, maybe, or as the sun's going down. So they're not DX, they're Fringe. And I told you the story about the people that lived out at the lake in New Jersey, and all these old Zenith radios or Philcos could pick up the stations from New York. And then I was talking to a guy, I'm in the Radio Shack, and the guy says to me, that radio behind there will do it. And I took one home, I told you, and then the people end up using the Radio Shack unit, all right, which I have one apart right now. Looks like this. Wants to go further back. All right, that's what it looks like, see? And they call it, what do they call it? They call it on it, they say, yeah, long range TRF circuit. All right, so camera's being a turd again. All right, anyway, so during the day, you're doing Fringe. Station is on the other side of the mountain. It's Fringe. You need a long range radio to get enough signal that you can enjoy the radio. Now, DX is something totally different. You could have a cheap transistor radio in the palm of your hand at night, sitting in a chair, and you start tuning, and all of a sudden, you get this station in between other two stations. And this is a shitty radio. This is a piece of shit radio. But all of a sudden, you have this really strong station. And you're like, gee, there's a new station. No, it's skipping in. During the day, the sun actually, real quick, the sun charges the ionosphere. And there's different layers. Read up on Skip. And then what happens is you're sitting there and you got this cheap transistor radio. And the signal, the conditions are maybe winter time, they're perfect. The signal from the antenna of the station goes up, hits the ionosphere, reflects back down, hits the ground, reflects back up. And it's sawtooths across the country, and it's hitting your radio. And you're getting a lot of signal. And as soon as as quick as it shows up, it may disappear. 20 minutes later, it may come back again. That's DX. D for distance, X for unknown. So you stay with it. And they start mentioning the call letters, and you write it down. and then you can move, you can turn your antenna and turn the radio, and it might make it a little bit better, but for the most part, when it starts coming back in, it's skipping back in, it'll be real loud again, and you're like, what the hell's going on? That's DX. That's the hobby. You wait for the right conditions, and you want to have a radio that's very sensitive to start with, and a radio that you can really tune the tuning knob very precisely, and there's no backlash in it. There's certain radios that are considered DX radios, but there are fringe stations, and they're on during the day, and you'll see them on these maps if you go on. I think it's Radio Locator, and a lot of times it's just there's a mountain in the way, and you can't get the station. Now, in New Jersey, certain radios I had were getting WGHT 1500 out of Pompton Lakes. I don't think that, I think it went off the air and might have come back on, then went off the air again. It was a local station for the people in that area, and the commercials were for stores and candy shops and stuff for that area. So I would leave that on during the day because the commercials weren't annoying ones. They would just say, Mary with the confectionery store down in Main Street is having a 2-for-1 sale today. It was just that kind of ad. So it wasn't really annoying as one of these stupid jingles for a car company or whatever. But that's not DX. That's Fringe. So down in North Arlington, I'm behind 2 different mountains, and with this box loop that I built, and later on the Moose loop, I could get that station. And there were a bunch of stations that I could get during the day, but they weren't anything like WGHT. Now, here at 1600, we have a Sweet 16 station. And Sweet 16 is in another county of Pennsylvania. And it's not, you can't pick it up on all radios. And if you got a good Fringe radio, you can hear it. It's enjoyable. And that's the whole thing. When Channel Master, which that's what this is, way back in probably 1960, this was made. Transistor radios weren't that great. They would do local. They only had 3 IFs, as you can see. I think this is in the frame. Yeah, this radio has 3 IFs. It's got a local oscillator, and this is the other RF amp coil. The signal comes in on this large loop antenna, gets amplified by a transistor, not a FET, and then it gets sent to this coil. And this coil and this are tuned together. So you have a tuned front end. You could call it TRF, tuned radio front end. And then it goes to the mixer. All right? So that's what you're dealing with. You know, you buy a radio that you know has got a certain amount of sensitivity. Now, somebody left something in the comment area, and I told him he shot from the hip. There are people, they go around in the internet, and just have to tell people what radio they have. And it's never any a good one. Now this guy, well, it's got this radio. Go away. Go look at the shootout for DX radios or Fringe radios. Go look. There's people that have a whole web page dedicated to. The guy's out on his back porch, and he takes that stupid Panasonic that goes for like $400, and it's got a just slightly better front end than a super radio. In other words, with one radio, you might hear the carrier and on the frequency and a little bit of voice, and with a slightly better radio, you can almost make out what the guy's saying. That's the difference between a super radio and the Panasonic 2200, whatever it is. It's only a tiny little bit. It's bragging rights. A real guy that DXs, he's got all the cards on the wall from picking up all the different stations around the world, and he doesn't have the Panasonic 2200. He's got maybe the Radio Shack, or he sits there and he puts the time in. And the same thing with the shortwave radio. I had a really good shortwave radio, and I was into pirate guys. And one of the guys had all kinds of QSO cards, and he had a Radio Shack DX160. And everybody in the room standing there bullshitting about their radios had better radio than him, but he put the time in. And later on, he went on to write articles and all that stuff. But anyway, he was the real deal. And I was the real deal. I had a certain thing I wanted to receive fax, build a machine myself, and these other guys would talk about, I'm going to buy that decoder. And then I did a demo one time of my spinning drum, and they all stood around. And one time I was in in the store, and the guy came in, and he saw my demonstration, and he started telling me about my machine. He made it his machine. Yeah, they're out there. But I just want to tell you, DXing, you can DX with almost any radio. When the conditions are right, in a clear spot, there's clear frequencies. You can pick up other countries. You stay with it. The right conditions, you'll get that station. And they're slightly off frequency compared to ours. There's what they call an offset. And some radios have a switch. And that's so when you take the radio to another country, you throw that switch, and then the digital readout works correctly. It doesn't really help you in the United States. That radio, most digital radios are not that sensitive. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all lipstick on a pig. And that's why I'm very leery of anybody that drops in and just starts mentioning a number of a radio, and I can't get the schematic to look at it. And he could be a shill for the frickin' district guy that sells the damn radio. And those guys are out there too. And what I hate is you go around looking for real information on the internet, and you have to dig through all this bullshit. People they just have to tell you about the radio. Now there's EHAM review, and you go in there and you're thinking about buying this radio, and you want to go in and read about what's particularly good about the radio. And you get these guys, oh, my uncle gave me one of these in high school, and I really love the radio. What does that have to do with reviewing the radio? Right? They're in there. Half of the reviews are, well, my father bought me one. It's like, I had one. Oh, I had one. Instead, and you get very few of the guys going, oh, that radio doesn't have a front end, a really good front end on it, which I could tell you is the Hellcrafters SX 120? No, something S120. What a piece of shit. Okay? And you got guys, I'm going to rebuild this. He ain't going to rebuild it. It's a piece of shit to start with. But anyway, it was a Hellcrafters. I think I'm saying the right name. It was sold in a department store. There's no RF front end on it. Right? It's got the antenna comes straight into a coil, and then it goes to the mixer. There's no preamper in there, double coils, none of that. It's a piece of junk. It's a kitchen radio circuit with different coils in it, just to get some shortwave. And you'll get Radio Moscow, you'll get BBC. This is years ago. You get all these different countries on it. But when it came to get Vietnam and maybe Australia, you wouldn't be able to pick it up. All right, that's the thing. You got the real radios out there and the shit. And I'm not gonna fall into the fact that someone says something, I'm gonna say something to him. Oh, he was off topic. He was in the wrong place. So I consider that person a shill. Indirectly somehow he sells them on radio on eBay, or he's one of the district guys that sells them. I don't care what he says to me. He's off topic. He's in the wrong place. He just has to come in and tell you about his radio. He makes a quick comment about, well, you might be able to build that circuit, but you're better off just getting a ferret rod and putting it next to the radio. Get the shovels out for that shit. I think that's it. All right, that's it.